Ladies and gentlemen, hello, and welcome to Nerdy for 30, the podcast where comedian Tim Keck and I talk about nerdy-ish things for 30-ish minutes. My name is Kevin Bauer, and today we are talking about Knock at the Cabin, the new M. Night Shyamalan. I was going to say joint. I struggle to say anything that makes this movie sound cool. The new M. Night Shyamalan sigh that was released in theaters last weekend to my own personal malaise. I am a bit under the weather right now. I feel like I don't normally have the range and excitement that I do. We just recorded our episode about Bahubali, a very exciting Tollywood movie. I felt bad that I couldn't bring more energy to that movie. Knock at the Cabin, this is about what it deserves.
Kevin, knock, knock.
Who's there?
A shitty ass movie. This thing sucked ass, dude. It's not even like it was. What a fucking waste of time that was. That's like the thing that stands out to me the most. Saying it's a bad movie isn't accurate. It's the acting is good. There's people doing things. It's bad doesn't describe it. It's just a complete waste of time. If you've seen the trailer, you've seen the whole movie, There's no suspense. The only thing that keeps you going is the acting and the possibility that something will happen. And then that something doesn't happen. And we're all like, okay, why the fuck did we sit through this? It is a waste of time, Kevin. I can't describe it better than just an absolute waste of our time. Yeah,
absolutely. It's like how the opposite of love isn't hate, because both of those are drawn from like passion. The opposite of love or hate is indifference. And this is an indifferent movie. This goes in the box with movies like Fant Four Stick, where like their sin is just that they're a neutral tone of gray. They're like a heather gray t-shirt from Fruit of the Loom. Like, it's not even bad enough to be fucking Gildan. It's not good enough to be like alternative apparel. It's just right there in the middle. I think it really says something about this movie that the projector froze 6-7 times during our movie. And we all plausibly thought that it was part of the movie.
I think everyone in our theater was like desperate for anything to happen.
Yeah.
Like just anything happen. And when that happened, I was like, holy shit, is this some weird meta thing where like he's going to pause and like rewind? They even like rewound the movie 30 seconds after one of the pauses. So we got to watch this whole scene over again. We wanted anything to happen and it doesn't. The premise of this movie, don't go see it. Don't even bother seeing it. It's a waste of time. There's this couple at this cabin with their daughter, and 4 people show up and they tell them it's the end of the world unless one of them kills one, unless the 3 of them kill one of their family members. And they have to decide, and it sucks, but that's the truth. And these 4 guys show up and they're like, cool, if you don't do this, there's going to be a plague. And then they start killing themselves. And after each one kills themselves, then a plague is unleashed on Earth. And I guess the suspense is, are these guys full of shit? Is this real? Do we know if there's actually plagues? And if you've seen the trailer, you saw a gigantic wave like coming in on the trailer, like crushing the beach. So it's like, okay, so we have I think the whole time everybody's just like, yeah, so this is real. This is real. They don't do anything enough to like really convince you otherwise. It's just it, and it happens. And you're like, okay, the most interesting choice at this point is for this to not be real. If this isn't real, then all of a sudden we've got a story. We've got some kind of a twist. We've got some kind of a payoff. And then in the end, it is real. It does happen. And everything's fine. Everything's fine. You'd think even 100%. Like the remaining family members would be like crushed emotionally by this or like destroyed by this. But we even get a little glimpse into the future where they're fine and they're laughing and they're happy. And this is ultimately just, not a flash of the pan for them. They've got beautiful long lives ahead of them and everything's going to be fine. And they even make the least interesting choice on who they kill, Kevin. Mm-hmm. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. There's no tension. One of the things that's unfortunate, I think another interesting way to take this would be that the characters recognize that it's real and it's happening earlier so that the tension can come from which one is going to kill. Because there's not a good answer for which one of them would die. There's not like a clear bad guy, but there is definitely I think a least interesting choice in it being Jonathan Groff's character, because he's the only one that actually believes. So it's like, of course he would be the one that would sacrifice himself. Everything in the movie like makes sense. Like everything in the movie checks out for the most part. Nobody behaves in a way. I mean, I guess maybe that shouldn't be a fault. Nobody behaves in a way that's unrealistic outside of the fact that like at one point, I forget the dude's names in the couple, but at one point the like kind of rougher dude, the guy who's not Jonathan Groff, he's like
Andrew.
Yeah, he's like, look, he keeps checking his watch. He knows when all these news things are going to happen. This is just a rebroadcast of an earlier news story. And I mean, I don't think they do that. I don't think people replay news anymore. I think the 24-hour news cycle has made it so that there's always news. I don't think they're going to replay news from before. So that was like the only unrealistic behavior I could see in the movie.
It was very strange. Excuse me. And then even with the like suspense that maybe it's not real, right? They're checking their watches, something's going on. And then this couple, it's a gay couple, gay men, and they were accosted in a bar one time. And the guy, Andrew Ben Aldridge is the actor's name, gets hit over the head with a bottle. And at that point kind of turns his life around into, I'm never going to get taken advantage of again. He's taking boxing classes, gets jacked, buys a gun, isn't going to take shit from anybody anymore. And when Rupert Grint walks into the cabin with these four people who are the messengers of doom in this scenario, he says, I think I recognize Rupert. I think he's the guy who hit me with the bottle. And then that's kind of a suspenseful story in this too. But it's also like, of course he is. We're all like on board. Everyone I think is on board. Okay, so he's the guy who hit you. Okay, so then how are these other people related to you? They're not. There's no other relationships you have with any of these people. They're not other people from your past. It just so happens that the one guy who hit you with that bottle one time, that was a very significant moment in your life, he's here. But the other three are completely irrelevant. They have nothing to do with you. There's no relationship. There's no reason to really explore your relationship with any of them. And then one of my favorite parts at the end, when they're like, Jonathan Groff and Ben Aldridge are like face to face and the world's ending. And they're like, oh my God, you got to kill. And Groff is like, you got to kill me. You got to kill me. It all makes sense now. And Ben's like, I don't believe it. Who gives a shit? Fuck it. This is dumb. Let's just get out of here. And Groff is like, think about it. Each one of the four visitors represents a different aspect of humanity. And then it's like nurturing, lust. I don't know what it is. It's like just random.
I think I remember it. It was nurturing, guidance, malice, and healing.
The four aspects of humanity.
They said it with the same. It was the same confidence that they go into the movie The Fifth Element with, of like, oh yeah, you know, the four elements.
I know, but those at least make some sense. That is a trope, you know, of the elements. You know, we could probably figure out a couple of them. You know, water and earth, those are going to be there. Fire, yes, we've all watched Captain Planet. The elements is at least some semblance of a scale. You know, the 7 deadly sins is a trope. You know, that each one of those reflects it. And maybe that's a, you know, an a la like a 7 type scenario where it's like all, you know, they're exhibiting these things. They just rattled off 4 things that have never been like all grouped together before in any context whatsoever. And they just said the aspects of humanity. I mean, this is just such a useless fucking thing. It'd be one thing if like each of these characters was related to them in some way and they taught them a lesson. They didn't even realize it. What if one of them is from their daughter's past and she has a relationship with one of like there. It could be more complicated, but then it doesn't even happen. The guy, Ben Aldridge, the guy's not going to take any shit again, doesn't believe in this scenario. He's going to leave. Goff is like, you got to kill me. It's so uninteresting that Goff is the guy. He says he saw a reflection in the mirror. He starts believing them. He believes in the transformation. Why can't we have Groff becoming obsessed with the idea that one of them needs to die and trying to kill the others? They can't kill themselves. That's the loophole in this. They can't kill themselves. So what if Groff, I don't know, tries to kill their daughter and Ben stops him, or he shoots Ben, or he's like, I don't know. I mean, there's like anything. Give me anything at all. Instead, it's the guy who's trained for this his whole life. He's tough. He's got the gun. He shoots Groff, who's just kind of, you know, bought into it and just kind of a wimp. And then they go and they pick up their adopted daughter, and then they get in the car and they listen to the same song they listened to at the beginning of the movie, and everything's going to be okay. They even go to a diner and there's like a there's so many goddamn news programs playing in this movie. If you like watching actors pretend to be newscasters, it's a shock that dude who plays Purd wasn't in it. Like what a missed opportunity. That guy's played like a reporter in like multiple movies. They should have gotten Purd Hapley in this. It would have been incredible. It's just news anchor after news anchor after news story. They go into a diner. Everyone's like, wow, can you believe we did so well with the hurricane? Wow. Then they're on the news and they're saying, wow, everything stopped. Planes were crashing out of the sky. They're like, no more planes are crashing. This is great. They're just like beating us over the head with this idea that's so unoriginal and like milquetoast. Yeah. It's just absolute indifference, Kevin. Absolute indifference to this whole thing. What a waste of time.
Dude, the news footage is preposterous. Like, we saw this with our buddy Spencer. Spencer, during the first piece of news footage they showed, leaned over and was like, yes, classic news. It was like Cloverfield caliber footage of a tsunami hitting a beach. The news would have cut away a million times. There's no way that the footage even could have made it to the news, because at the end of it, the person filming it gets like washed away by the waves. So it's like, how did you get this? Was this person live streaming and what happened? Like, just, completely ridiculous. They didn't get the fundamentals right. Like, even getting that kind of stuff right would have helped the tone of the rest of the movie, because it would have made that feel a little bit more realistic. But at the end of the day, I think it's just like you said, there was never a point in this movie where we thought for a second that maybe the apocalyptic things weren't happening. And it needed either that or it needed the people to buy in faster.
Yeah. The only reason I was even thinking that the apocalypse stuff wasn't happening, I kind of like in my heart, I hoped it wasn't happening, because that would be interesting. It would be really interesting if these guys had somehow faked it all. Why are they doing this? Are we going to get any answers? Don't even explain why the apocalypse is happening. Guys get visions that told them to do this, and this is the way things are. And like, cool, that's it. We just have to accept that and move on, and everybody does. And it's so boring. But I will say the acting in it is good. It's good. All the actors are good. They're just not doing anything. They have nothing to do. They're kind of just saying the same stuff over and over again. And I don't know. Who cares?
Tim,
did you made a face when I said that. You don't think the acting was any good in this?
I got to strongly disagree with you. I think this was a cornball ass movie. I thought Andrew was good. I thought the kid was like, she was like impressively good at delivering lines.
Yes, but she was good.
She fell into that situation where it's like, and how old are you again?
Yes. It's a classic trope of this pod.
Oh, it's so hard. So hard to figure out how old any kid is supposed to be in a movie. I thought I saw an article that said like, it's time we admit that Dave Bautista is the best wrestler turned actor.
Yes.
Not even close.
I wanted to ask you that. I wanted to ask you Bautista or John Cena, because that's really the only conversation we can be having.
A million times Cena. A million times. There's not any kind of a world in which Bautista takes Cena in this fight. Bautista so far has two speeds. He has grumpy person that's talking really slowly, and he has Drax, and that's it.
That is kind of it. You're right. I mean, I was thinking maybe it was a conversation after this movie because he's a very quiet guy, which is kind of surprising and endearing for like how big he is. He's like a big, scary looking dude. I mean, he was a professional wrestler, but when he speaks, it's like so quiet. Even as Drax, he's just kind of like mumbling these snarky things, right? And in this, he's just kind of like speaking in a calm voice, like very quiet, like, you know, doing these things. And I don't know if I've seen John Cena yet. It feels like Dave Bautista now is trying to be like an actor.
Oh,
like
yeah.
Dave Bautista wants to be taken seriously. And John Cena is still in the, I'm an action hero. I'm doing Marvel. This is fun for me. You know, like I'm not trying to, John Cena isn't trying to be anything he's not right now. And it seems like Dave Bautista's like testing the waters with trying to be like a serious actor.
Maybe he can get there. But for right now, it feels like in that clip from The Trip, when Steve Coogan and Rob Brydon are both doing competing Michael Caine impressions. And Steve Coogan does a thing where it's like, I mean, I can't do Michael Caine, but Steve Coogan does a thing where it's like, and when he gets serious, he talks very low indeed, very low like this. And all of Dave Bautista's serious lines feel exactly like that. It's like, I'm sorry, I don't want to be doing this. If there's any other way to do this, I would be doing it that way. I'm so sorry. It's like, it's just slow Drax.
But do you believe him?
I mean, I knew it was Dave Bautista the whole time. At no point.
Well, it's not like at any point he's not going to be Dave Bautista. I mean, he's so recognizable. He is a celebrity. I don't feel like we're ever going to watch a movie and not be aware that he's Bautista in it. But Peacemaker, it's like, this is clearly John Cena. To me, it is. And I mean, after a while, you just kind of forget about it. And I wasn't thinking of him as Bautista in this movie. I was like, oh, this is Leonard, this weird big guy. I don't know. I think it's a little closer. I think Dave Bautista is a better actor than you're giving him credit for. I agree that John Cena in Peacemaker alone, his Peacemaker performance alone is enough for me to say that he's the best. Because like he takes you on an emotional journey there while still being in this like superhero, you know, range.
Oh my God, big time. I don't think enough people have watched Peacemaker. Peacemaker was like the best show of 2021. Absolutely ruled. Please, if you haven't seen Peacemaker, spend any amount of time that you would have spent on Cabin in the Woods or Knock at the Cabin Door. Knock at the Cabin. Jesus Christ. Just go watch Peacemaker.
Yeah. I swear it was Knock at the Cabin Door. We all thought it was. And then it's not. It doesn't say that on the movie. It doesn't say it anywhere. It's just Knock at the Cabin, which they knock 3 times. Dave Bautista knocks on the cabin, knocks like 3 times to do
7 times to do it.
Or 7 times?
I was counting because I was like, I bet this is going to be important. It was not.
It does not. Knock at the Cabin is just one series of knocks. Then Bautista comes in. And then at the end of the movie, we stayed for the whole end of the scroll or whatever. And the credits are all like, you know, lightning bolts and kind of going through the plagues that were in this movie. And then the last thing you hear was the screen goes to black is 7 knocks. And I'm just picturing M. Night Shyamalan being like, this is going to blow their minds. And I'm just like, this was so fucking annoying. It was just so lame. It just felt like, it felt try hard after this movie. It didn't feel deep. It didn't feel cool. It felt like, God, fucking lame. Like you're right. There was no significance to the knocking. None at all. It didn't mean anything.
Nothing.
It wasn't relevant in any way.
The opening credits were so confident too. When the opening credits were going on, I was like, shit, this might be a banger, because there's like a level of like, I feel like there's like a level of heat that people can bring in with a really confident opening credit sequence. They're not just using Helvetica, you know, they're using a custom font. They're playing with the leading. They're playing with the kerning. They're doing it. They found a graphic designer because they're like, look, we can't do just a normal credit sequence. This movie deserves more. They went out, they put that work in for this movie, and then it was a discredit to the graphic designer that they got to do the credits.
It was because they do like opening credits, right?
Mm-hmm.
They had the names of everybody, which I feel like nowadays feels very old school.
Oh yeah.
Don't a lot of people just put that after the movie?
Yeah. And he was going for like an old school thing. He shot the entire thing on lenses from the 90s to, in his words, give it that old school thriller look.
I mean, any sort of a thriller would have been appreciated greatly. Okay. I want to go through Rupert Grint.
Worst.
Good actor, bad actor.
This might be the worst American accent I have ever heard in any movie in my entire life. This was such an unbelievably egregiously bad accent. And I'm rooting for Rupert Grint. You know, it's got to be really hard to bear the weight.
We all are.
I think we all are, man. And this was not it. This falls under one of the categories too, where it's like a double sin, because there's no reason that he needed to be. I guess, you know, it would be a little bit harder to believe that he was British and like homophobic than like from Alabama or wherever and homophobic. But outside of that, I mean, I still feel like they could have played with a way to not force him to have an accent. He was supposed to be from Massachusetts. And
was he really?
Point, yeah, it was Memphis, Massachusetts, because the way that he said Memphis was like Memphis. It was very, very British. And he had mostly made it through the rest of that sentence. And then he said Memphis. And it was like, oh my God. Because it wasn't like a Boston accent. Like Memphis. It was like Memphis.
It was a little weak. Of the big Harry Potter 3, you know, Daniel, Emma, and Rupert, he's by far the weakest actor of the bunch. I mean, as far as the Harry Potter universe is concerned, I liked him. I liked Ron Weasley. But Daniel Radcliffe, like, seems like he loves acting and like wants nothing more than be an actor. Emma Watson seems like she knows what acting is. And Rupert Grint, it feels like just, I don't know why he's making movies. I don't know what he's even doing. Like these people are loaded. There's no way Rupert Grint like needs work, you know? He came back to do this thing and he's like, it's going to be a big thing. He got like an and Rupert Grint or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was like, it was a big deal that he was in this. And it's just, you know, unexciting. I get how the role could call to him. It seems like maybe another like fake edgy role that I feel like we might have talked about before, where it's like, oh, cool. You know, it's like when a Nepo baby does a scene where they're like all drugged out, you know, they're a drug addict. And that's really hardcore to like their other like Nepo friends in Hollywood, you know, like it feels like Rupert Grint's like, I'm going to come back as a real actor. I'm going to be a homophobe. And I feel like a white trash bad guy is like another like kind of version of that, where it's like, no, this is a serious role. I hate gay people in this role, and that's to be taken seriously. And it just feels a little insincere, fake edgy, you know? I don't know. It feels like he's trying to be a badass or trying like he thought this could be a meaty role for like a real acting performance in it. And it really wasn't. What'd you think of the other people? Adrian and Sabrina. Sabrina's the nurse, and Adrian is the woman that we find out has the kid. Did you think either of them was particularly stunning in their acting performance?
I thought Sabrina was probably the best actor in this. I think for me, it's between Sabrina and Andrew for the best actor in this. I thought Adrian was. I mean, it's tough because I don't know, you know, maybe she's British. Maybe she put in like this insane like performance as this kind of like adorable person, but she reminded me so much of so many real people that we met doing improv in our 20s.
Yes.
I was kind of like, I feel like they just brought someone in that maybe could do like college humor sketches.
I 100% was like, when I first saw her, I was like, her improv team is losing their minds in their showing right now. Like they all went at opening night to go watch her. And it's like, there's seven of them are there like cheering her on and all this stuff. They're like, oh, this is my famous friend. Like she has improv kid energy, like so hard. I don't know if that makes her bad, but I honestly thought everybody was pretty good. Jonathan Groff, I don't know how I feel about him in general. He's like a theater guy. And when he does theater stuff, it's great. Anytime I see him in something that's not like a theatery role, you know, like he was in Hamilton, insanely good. So fun. Yeah. But outside of that, he has a very punchable face. I feel like he just looks like, you know, he was like kind of like a bad guy in Glee. and,
it was a great role.
It's just like great role, just like a snobby, bad musical kid. It was good for him, but yeah, I don't know. Especially when he's like buying into all this occult stuff. Gosh, I am like upset that he's the one who dies. It just seems like. Which parent do you think the girl liked more?
I mean, I think she probably had the closest connection with Jonathan Groff, but I think she probably sought the affection of Andrew more, because I feel like Andrew's a little bit more, you know, he's like the fun one. He's the one that's like going to be a little bit harder to reach because he's kind of got a wall up because of the whole attack at the bar. And
he's the more masculine guy. He's like lifting weights and shooting guns and like tougher, you know, but like the beginning of the movie, they're both tied up in chairs and she is like clinging to Andrew.
Mm-hmm.
She's like she immediately gravitates towards Andrew. And then like the second half, she's going to Groff. And I think just grasping for straws at anything that would make this interesting, trying to figure out what her relationship was actually with her parents. Because it seemed by the end, it seemed like very similar. They all loved her equally. There was no debate about killing the kid, which I guess makes sense. But also some part of me is like, well, you guys found your soulmates. You can adopt another kid. Like, who are we kidding? You've had her for a few years. Who gives a shit? You can get more. You know, you guys are together. The foundation's strong. Just run it back with someone else. You know,
dude, this podcast right here is going to be what prevents you from adopting a child someday.
Yeah, I don't know. Some part of me thought that. I wanted the discussion. I wanted the thought of it. I wanted something because that would have been interesting. I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm not saying that's what I would do. To the adoption agency listening now, listen, I'm going to be a great father. and no, there isn't a woman around. And no, I'm not going to baby proof my apartment. And and worst case, you know, we try again. That's how I feel about it. If at first you don't succeed, try again. My never give up attitude is going to make one of these adoptions successful. I'm telling you, I've got what it takes. Might take a few tries to get right, but 3 strikes and you're out. At 3, I'll call it quits. But until then, I'm still in the box, baby. I'm still swinging away. We call some strikes.
I agree. Obviously, you know, it's not a good thing, but if you're going to open it up to be a conversation,
Kevin, you're really going to say that killing a child isn't a good thing?
That's my hot take. But like, if you open it up in a situation where clearly what's interesting about this movie is the idea, like we are in the narrative context of this movie playing with the idea of if one person had to be sacrificed, who and why. It's like a terrible icebreaker game. But like,
yes,
if you're going to introduce that as the concept of your movie, follow through with it or find a different concept. I don't understand why there's so much half-assing going on here.
That discussion doesn't happen. They don't have a genuine discussion about who would die. Like the proposal of the movie is you have to kill a member of your family. And then that part of it doesn't factor into the movie.
Right.
It's, are we going to do it or are we not going to do it? It's yes or no. Are we going to kill someone in our family? Yes, no. The interesting question is who. And that is glossed over and just as a problem that solves itself at the end of the movie. And that discussion is interesting. If one of the fathers, hypothetically, floats the daughter's name, and then he's the one who survives at the end, that's a complicated, interesting relationship that we now have to see.
Oh my God.
But they do this dumb bit at the end with the radio. They were all singing, I don't know what the song was. I forget what the song was. Something about shoes, right?
Yeah.
Blue suede shoes or something. Boogie shoes. And They get in the car. He turns on the radio. There was a montage of them all at the beginning singing this song. And then he turns on the radio at the end of the movie and it's Boogie's Shoes. He turns it off. The girl turns it on. Then she turns it off. Then he turns it back on and it's on, which I feel like is really symbolizing like, okay, they're going to get over it. They're reclaiming Boogie's Shoes. They're dealing with their grief. And then we see a montage of them in the future. And it's just uncomplicated. The end of the movie is so uncomplicated. It's frustrating.
It's extremely frustrating. Oh, we didn't really get that much about their relationship as a couple. Like, we got shorthand for it with like, you and me against the world or whatever the thing is. And like, it was pretty similar to the Avatar, like, I see you thing.
Yeah, they had a whole like you and me thing that again would inspire like talking about the kid or talking about their relationship or what does that mean? Like,
yeah.
But again, their relationship is not explored at all. I mean, that's a great point is we don't know anything about their relationship except that they are both gay men. Mm-hmm. And that is something M. Night Shyamalan harps on the whole time, which is fine. That's a story to tell, but their homosexuality does not make them interesting characters. It's not an interesting trait. You know, it is maybe the struggle and all of that, but what's their relationship? How does that reflect who they are to each other? Like who are these people? What do they do? What do they mean to each other? How do they feel about the world? How do they view things? All of these things are more complicated than just, you know, their sexuality, which I mean, it can be a nuanced story, but in a story that is founded on the relationship dynamic between these two people, one of them has to die. You'd think we would spend some time exploring the relationship.
Oh my God.
And they
for
don't.
Sure. Like even in so like probably the most interesting part of this movie was Andrew's response to the attack in the bar and the little mini montage we get of him like shopping for a gun and like beating up a punching bag and the cutback and him coming back into the house and like shooting. Like that whole sequence was the most interesting thing because it was kind of the only real like character exploration we got. But again, you know, how did Jonathan Groff feel about him getting a gun? Like, I know he said the thing where it was like, you brought it this weekend and like, but show me how he felt as he's doing more of these like aggressive things, like as he's trying to learn more, show us more situations where, you know, Jonathan Groff comes up and just kind of tries to like gently put his hand on his shoulder and Andrew like spazzes out and that kind of stuff. Like, let me see how this impacted their relationship as people. Otherwise,
I mean, really,
yeah.
None of the flashbacks really helped Jonathan Groff at all. They were all about Andrew. They were all about his relationships to things. They were about him being all we get from the flashbacks is that Jonathan Groff comes from a loving home. And then he's just kind of brushed. I mean, in hindsight, it's very obvious that he's going to die, right? Because we're not getting any development from him whatsoever.
Yeah.
Or maybe that's another just misdirect. I mean, I don't know, Kevin. I just feel let down. I have to ask you. Knock on the Cabin, better or worse than Avatar: The Way of the Water?
Oh, worse.
Okay.
Absolutely worse.
I'll update the list. Good to know. Kevin, any final thoughts on this before we wrap it up?
No. I think the less said about this, the better. I think this one half hour was probably even too much. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being with us for that half hour. This has been Nerdy for 30.
Thank you.
We will be back here again next week talking about, hopefully, a much more fun movie, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. So we'll see you then.
Yes, baby.
Till then, stay nerdy, everybody. Bye.
Stay nerdy. Bye. Wow, we did it. We nailed it.